Overtime!
All right, last time with the Amplifone vector monitor that I've been working on for the Star Wars, I was focused on the deflection board. I had a whole list of things that I was doing from Michael Kelly's Amplifone vector FAQ, and we did most of them together on the video last time. There were a few things that I did off camera. Most importantly, I replaced all of the brown jumpers, the sort of 0 ohm resistors that are notorious for going bad. I replaced all 8 of them with capacitor legs that I had cut off from cap kits. So that's all good. I also resoldered all the harness wires, including the yellow one had kind of broken off. That was part of the modification that I did earlier. So all of the harness wires are resoldered on the board. Most of the time I would completely resolder it and even cut off some additional insulation from the wire just to give it a really solid anchor for soldering. I did a little bit of work checking for shorts and opens, but honestly not too much. I looked for cold solder joints, really didn't find anything. And last but not least, I replaced all 4 fuses. And so that's everything on the sort of Amplifone deflection board, repair list, upgrade list, that sort of thing. So we will move the deflection board off to the side. That should be good to go for now. And today we will turn our attention to the HV board, which, other than being smaller, it actually is a little bit more involved. There's more things that can go wrong here. This tends to be where the issues reside. Apparently, I mean, this is my first ever Amplifone, but according to the FAQ, this is where most of the issues come from, first and foremost with the flyback. So, again, I've got a list here of sort of repairs and upgrades to make. It's kind of split into 2 lists because he sort of has it listed twice. They mostly line up, but we've got that here. And I also have, that list is really a distillation or, a summary of things that I wrote down into a checklist. I've got the full FAQ up on my laptop that I can reference sort of as we're working on this. But here now we'll turn our attention to the HV board. The biggest thing that I sort of alluded to is this flyback. So there's a whole notorious story, the whole red is dead flyback. You can read about it if you want. There's an interesting story in the FAQ about how these flybacks got damaged, potentially moisture got inside of them during the manufacturing process at the Amplifone factory that Atari had recently purchased. But very, very notoriously, these red flybacks always die, and it's almost not even worth testing, not even worth trying. We're just going to pull this thing out. I do have a ring tester. We can do some tests to the flyback to sort of see if it's completely dead. But I do have a brand new nice reproduction flyback made by Peter at arcadepartsrepair.com. So we will be installing this so we can compare it in the testing to see what's what. Now, interestingly, this doesn't have an integrated adjustment block, right? There's a separate, for the focus and screen pots is a separate sort of adjustment block. It's not integrated into the flyback. And you'll notice here that it is. But I think these are dummy pots, and you actually run these wires to where they go. There is a thicker wire that comes out of the top, and I think that's the one that goes to the focus block. And then there's a thinner wire that sort of wraps around whatever this piece is called. And I think that's the one that, there's one that wraps around over here. So we'll sort of follow that pattern when we install this. Looking at this checklist, there's a bunch of stuff that we're going to do. There's a bunch of transistors that we're going to pull and test. I'm likely going to just replace all of them, even if they test good. There's a lot of these that are kind of critical parts, and I just want to replace them rather than just reinstall the 40-year-old original parts. I've got replacements for all of these high quality stuff. So a lot of these we're just going to replace. I mean, we will test them. We'll do all the testing of the resistors and diodes, which seems like a lot of work, but it's important for what we got here. There are 5 or so caps to replace on this board. And there's some testing we can do similar to on the 6100 Wells Gardner color vector. You can kind of bring it up in stages, and you can test parts of the deflection board and parts of the HV board, and you're like removing parts and sort of not having everything plugged in, so we can do that sort of testing. Some of these, there's an important thing. There's like 3 different versions or generations of the HV board and I guess the Amplifone monitor in particular. There's a blue version, a beige version, and a green version. So think of them as 1, 2, and 3. On the blue versions, that were really only used, I think, in Quantum, and later games like Star Wars and Major Havoc, etc., drive the monitor harder. You have to actually modify the early blue HV boards and install some pretty beefy 5-watt resistors and some diodes on the dual 24 volt regulators. But this being a beige version, they're actually already there. I think that's, so these 2 sort of big fat resistors, if you can even see it in the camera, are right there. One is mounted vertically and one's mounted horizontally. And then these, I think these resistors, or these diodes, CR5 and CR6 are good. So I don't think we have to worry about that. I might end up just replacing them because, again, those are critical parts, and I've got new ones. So we might, I don't really want to call it shotgunning because we're going to test and see if anything's wrong, but we'll probably replace a ton of stuff. And I think there already is a fan in the cabinet, but we might install another one. So we'll get all this going, and my goal is to get us to the point where we can maybe test the monitor. But before we do that, we have to work on the HV board. And the first thing I want to do is pull this old Red is Dead flyback off of it. You see how long this anode wire is, because this board is sort of designed to be mounted on the side of the cabinet, not just right under the neck like a typical monitor chassis. So you have a super long anode wire here. We're connected to this focus block, or this adjustment block. Let me see if I can remove the rubber boot easily. Yeah, that's coming off. So we'll have to desolder that. Come on, it was starting to come off. Just a little rubber boot that sort of protects the connection. Ooh, and it's kind of splitting, which I don't love, but that'll be all right. So we'll desolder that. We have our normal points underneath, and then there's one wire underneath here. So yeah, let me go and desolder this. Should be pretty straightforward. One connection to remove here. Again, a white wire under here, and then the solder points for the legs of the transformer. It looks like there's maybe a bolt or 2 as well. So I'll go do that, and then we'll pull it out of the chassis and take a look at it together. Okay, I pulled the original Red is Dead flyback, which says ultra tuned on it. What a joke. Out of the HV board. I used the Vampire Tools solder sucker. This is like a mechanical Soda-Pult style solder sucker with a little silicone tip on it. I actually been using this a ton. I like this actually better than even my really expensive Hacko desoldering pump gun. This is quite cheap. It doesn't jam. Well, I mean, it jams, but it's very easy to clear. And this works great. So yeah, I haven't even used my desoldering gun in a long time. So got that thing out, and in the over here in the FAQ, the Michael Kelly FAQ, it has some settings to test it with, right? So the way, even though I'm going to replace this, but the way you test a flyback is with a tool called a blue ring tester. You may have seen me use this before years ago with the Sharp monitors in my dual monitor Play Choice 10. This is made by Anatech Instruments. This has been around for forever. Often you buy it as a kit and you kind of put it together. And basically it's a ring tester, which means you have 2 probes here with alligator clips. You put them on different pins, and it basically is sending a signal and is counting like the loops it makes through the winding, because that's largely what a flyback is. It's a transformer with lots of windings. So the FAQ has these different readings. I'm actually having trouble kind of figuring out exactly how it's supposed to be. Like it talks about, goes by like clock positions, like hour positions, 7, 8, 11, 1, 2, 4, and 5. And then later it talks about 9 o'clock. And any way I position this, including the way it sort of says to, I can't get an orientation where all of those all of those times are like populated. Because like this would be 6 o'clock, which would give you 5 and 7, but not 4. And 1 is not there. It's just maybe like this, right? But then you don't have a 6. So I think this is technically the way it's supposed to be, and he calls this like 7, 9, 11, 1, 4, 5, maybe. So if we kind of prop this up, and maybe we can do this in a way where it'll show up on camera, because this is not the easiest thing to sort of balance this way. Maybe like that. So I've got my probes, and I'm supposed to have rings at, let's say, 7 and 5, which should be maybe these 2 points, I'm guessing. And if we press our button, hopefully it goes to green. And yep, that goes to green. And then 5 to 9 would maybe be this. Okay, and that goes to green. And just to check some of the others, we don't have readings in other places. All right, so that's good. And then it wants you to check at 4 o'clock, which must be this, even though that kind of looks like 3 to me. You should again have them at 7 and 9, but we don't have them here, and we don't have them here, but we've got it up there. And let's see, I don't know if we have it anywhere else. No, the only place that we have it, that is there. If I put it on what I think is 9, do I have it anywhere else? Well, I already knew that. And I have it from there to there. Okay, so that's what the red is dead flyback is telling me, which means this thing might actually be working. And let's compare it to the new one. And the new one, I actually, so it has a resistor in line, just like the original here. And this is sort of not a custom case. This is a different kind of case with a ferrite, and it's got some windings around it. It was all kind of like flopping around, so I zip tied it in place, just like it is here. And I think it's technically 1 less winding, but that's how it was when it came out of the box. And I think that's okay. And I believe this is like the heater wire. And even the instructions for the flyback on the product listing page say if you have a problem with your heater voltage, you sort of remove one of the sort of times it's wrapped around. So I think that'll be fine, but that's just so if you see anything that sort of looks strange like that. But all right, so propping the new one up. Let's see how we're going to do that. Come on. All right, maybe you can see that. And so the first one was these 2 bottom ones, which I think is 5 and 7 o'clock. Or no, how was I doing it? Like this. Yeah, okay. This is such an awkward thing to sort of balance and prop up. Now it's all tangled, and getting it so that the camera will see. All right, but 5 and 7, that rings out. 5 and 9, that rings out. But then when this is on what I think is 4, I don't get it there and there, but I do get it up here. No, I think it's ringing out the same. So what that means is this red is dead might actually be perfectly functional. However, I'm not going to use it because it's completely unreliable. And it looks like rodents chewed on all the white parts of the wire. So you can see it's chewed up right there a bit, and right here a little bit, and really bad right here. Like you can even see the wire exposed. So we're not going to use this. We'll put that off to the side. I'll hang that on the wall as a trophy, and in a bit we will install the new flyback in the chassis. But moving on in the meantime, looking at what we've got here, it says next we want to pull and test a bunch of different transistors, the BU406D, the MPSU 07, the 2N3904s, there's an SCR. One thing that I sort of discovered here, which is really kind of blowing my mind, is I think there's a pretty significant error in the FAQ. So even though this is version 1.2, so technically the third version, 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, it hasn't been edited since, is it 2021? Has it really been edited that late? No, March of 2002. And like you can see right here, and this is copied and pasted, it's the same in the FAQ, it says that the BU406D is Q2, and the MPSU 07 is Q3. And it says that throughout the FAQ. Over and over again, it says BU406D is Q2, transistor Q2, and the MPSU 07 is transistor Q3. And so I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm going through and looking at the board, and that's Q1, and this is Q2 right here. And I'm not sure if that'll show up on the camera, but if it does, you can see that says MPSU 07. So, okay, that's weird. And then if we come over here, mounted on this heat sink, you can see it says Q3 on the silk screen, and I really don't think this is going to show up. But if you can see, that says BU406D on that transistor on the heatsink. And again, that's Q3. So, at first I'm thinking to myself, did someone work on this HV board and just royally screw up and swap the position of these transistors? And I'm trying to find some sort of, clarification or validation. And what's funny is everywhere else I look online, including the parts pages for some of the replacement parts, it says that it's the other way around. It says that the BU406D is actually Q3 and the MPSU 07 is actually Q2. In the parts list for the Atari Amplifone manual, it doesn't name them by name. It sort of has an Atari part number and sort of like, 100 volt or 400 volt and 7 amps or 1 amp or whatever. So I had to double check the data sheets for these parts. And in fact, this is an error in the FAQ. It swaps these systematically over and over and over again, except there's a couple of sections that are almost like repair logs from other people, and they mention them right. But in the FAQ, there is a big error, and you do not want to swap these around because that would be a big problem. So we're going to go ahead, we'll pull all these, I'll test them. I am going to replace them with new ones just because we want them to be bulletproof. So even if they're working, or I'm going to put the new ones in, and I will, sort of note in my notes here which ones test okay, which ones don't test okay. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then it says to test all resistors and diodes, most of which I'll have to probably pull one leg out of circuit. I can try to test it in circuit, but if it doesn't test right, I'll pull one of the legs out and we'll test it that way. I need to recap the board. I think there's 5 capacitors on this thing. And theoretically, at that point, we can even start testing the HV board. A couple different ways to do that. I am going to replace some of the other components. The big 5 watt 50 ohm resistors that are sort of here and here, like you said. And in fact, the one closest to VR2 on the solder side is actually burnt up real kind of bad, charred bad there. So I'm assuming this resistor is perhaps out of spec, but we'll test it to make sure. And like I said, I've got replacements for them, so I'll probably go ahead and replace them. So I'm going to go and do most of that. Together, we'll just pull one of these capacitors out quickly. Let's see, what's easiest to get to? I think this is C1 right here, sort of the blue on top. And it looks like we've got these two, and those are, there's a jumper. We'll have to reattach connecting that. So the way I've been doing these lately, like is a slightly new technique. Again, I haven't been using my, what do you call it, desoldering gun. I've really just been like ripping them out. So I hold my soldering iron against the solder, let it melt. This one might be a little bit tricky. And I start to rock it out. I'll grab this other one here. We just trying to sort of pull it out of the joint. And usually there's less solder because there's less of an issue going on. What is actually holding this? Should be able to kind of, oh, there's glue. Maybe there's a little bit of glue there, but hold it in. And there, oh, there's a larger sort of ground plane here. Come on. My great technique is not doing so hot this time, but we'll get it. All right, I think we're close to being out here. One leg is totally out. I think one maybe is trapped in here. I'm actually going to help myself a little bit and remove some of this old solder just because it's kind of creating a mess with the vampire solder sucker. Okay, get a little bit more. I think this leg of this capacitor might be like hooked by that jumper. Let's see if I can move it out of the way. Okay, there we go. Now that's out, and oh, I must have bent that leg back as I was rocking it back and forth. But we can see this is actually a Nichicon. Wow, I'm surprised to see such a high quality cap in here. It's an 85 degree, but 470 microfarad, 50 volt in C1, and yeah, that's interesting. And the silk screen on top does indicate the polarity, if you can see that in there. And then I just come in here with my chem wick from Chemtronics, which is really awesome solder wick, solder braid, and we'll just clean this up a little bit. Get rid of all this old solder to open up the via, or the through hole. Okay. And I'll move this out of the way. Bend this up. Not even entirely sure what that goes to on the other side. Oh, that's the other side of the big honkin' resistor. So we'll clean up this pad over here. All right, that looks pretty good. I might go back with some isopropyl and clean up all the sort of burnt on flux that you see there. So I'm going to go ahead and do all those things like I mentioned. I'll pull and test all of the transistors. I'll cap it. I'll test all of the resistors and diodes. I'll replace basically a good chunk of this board. And then we'll come back and reinstall. We'll install the new flyback together, and then we should be getting relatively close to testing this thing. So stay tuned. Okay, here we go with a progress update on the Amplifone HV board. Obviously, I've depopulated it pretty significantly. I've even disconnected, or unscrewed at least, the focus block, so it's kind of flopping around. All the caps are out, the flyback's out, all of the transistors are out. I tested all of them. They seem okay. I really wasn't able to test, I'm not sure I'm testing the SCR properly. You know, typically in the past when I've tested SCRs, I've had to create a little sort of improvised temporary circuit to provide I think it's called the holding voltage that's needed to operate the thing. In the Amplifone FAQ, it says to simply use your multimeter on diode mode and check for either shorts or open circuits in any direction. But that doesn't make sense, right? I don't get any shorts, which is great, and I do get some voltage drop, like diode sort of effects. But there are some directions between the two probes of the multimeter and the three legs where I don't get a connection, right? Like that's an open circuit. So I don't know if that's the right way to test it. Anyway, and I grabbed some other SCRs to compare, and they seem to kind of be the same way. And I think I ordered a replacement, but I must have misplaced it because I can't find it in my bag of goodies from APAR. I did order one from DigiKey and paid for express shipping, but based on the UPS tracking information, I wasted my money with the express shipping because that's not coming until Monday, and I don't want to wait until Monday. So I'm just going to put the original SCR back into the HV board. And the FAQ says it's rare for the SCR to go bad, so that's going to be fine. But yeah, like I said, all of the other transistors tested perfectly fine, but I am going to replace all of them just anyway, right? Because I'm trying to make this really last a long time on location at Back to the Media in Winchester, Virginia. And also following the FAQ, I went and I tested all of the resistors and all of the diodes on the board. Everything looked good for the most part. There were a couple of diodes, CR3 and CR5, that I was having trouble kind of testing in circuit. Typically it's good to sort of pull one leg out of circuit so you can, test a component like that. But I figured with so much, unpopulated, depopulated from the board, that wouldn't be an issue because I'm breaking lots of circuits by taking components out. But those two, it was tricky to test them in circuit, so I pulled them and they tested just fine, so I'll put those back in. One in particular, the bigger one, that's CR3. That's actually not a normal diode. That is a fast recovery rectifier diode. And so when you test it, it actually has a higher voltage for the voltage drop than normal. Like with a normal diode, it's going to be like 0.4 to 0.6 volts. And that's like around a volt. So that's just something to keep in mind, just because it's going to look a little bit different than a normal diode in testing. And the only component really that I found so far that didn't test okay was one of these big, I think it was this one of these big power resistors. These are 50 ohm, 5 watt, big fat resistors. And it's the one that had, I think you might have seen it, there was some charring on the pad, on the trace on the underside. So these resistors, and they have corresponding diodes that CR5 is actually one of them. Those actually weren't in the original revision of the Amplifone HV board. The blue version was the earliest one. I think those only shipped with Atari Quantum games, and later games drive this HV board harder. Like Gravatar. I don't know if Gravatar came with an amp, or Star Wars, right? So Atari modified the design and added these diodes and these resistors to kind of support the 24 volt regulators. But mine had them, so if you don't have them, it's a good sort of modification to add them. The FAQ tells you all about that. But mine had them, but one of those resistors was testing out of spec. It's supposed to be 50 ohms. One of them was testing right around 50, like 49. But the other one tested like 59 or 60 ohms, which is definitely out of spec. So I was going to replace them anyway, but I'm definitely doing that now. However, one thing that I'm doing that's a little bit different is I'm not just going to put the same exact form factor as the originals in, because these do have a tendency to burn up. They run really, really hot, and even the 5 watts sometimes isn't enough. I've got a couple of these. Now, these are an upgraded version. These are actually resistors. They look like transistors, similar packaging, but these are resistors. This is a 50 ohm, 30 watt resistor, so much higher spec. And this can be mounted onto a heatsink to help dissipate that heat. And guess what we've got right here? A big old honking heatsink bar, that originally was only used for those 24 volt regulators, but we can modify this and install these higher 30 watt resistors onto the heatsink bar. The issue is, because it's a different form factor, the board was not designed for those resistors. And frankly, it wasn't even designed for these resistors either. Atari had to modify the board. There isn't even like silk screening for it. There is a silk screen label for the diodes, but not for those resistors. And so basically what Atari did was they just added additional holes into the PCB. And you can see like some of this insulation, which is a bit sort of toasty here, because this is like, crossing traces and whatever to get to where it needs to be. And that's sort of how Atari did it. But I want to do it with these higher, wattage resistors. And I was actually talking to Andrew B on the Claw forums, who is a vector monitor expert, and asked him, one, do you recommend this mod? And if so, how would you approach doing it? And he said that he's actually been back and forth on this modification, if he thinks it's a good idea or not, but he's actually, he's on the wagon now with thinking that modification is good with these higher, wattage resistors. So he does recommend it. And I was asking him, so like, what's the best way to mount it? Obviously, I know I need to drill holes into the heatsink to mount those resistors in that package onto the heatsink, but where's the best place to drill holes onto the PCB to run the legs to? Because sometimes in the past, people would like mount them all the way up here and then run wires, basically extending the legs of those components, of those resistors, run wires to different points on the PCB. And Andrew's like, that's one, like, he's seen issues with that because that increases the inductance and blah, just whatever, electrical engineering stuff that I don't really understand myself. So the best way to do it is to mount them without having to extend the legs. But that means you have to drill into the PCB. So where's the best place to drill into it to catch the traces that you want without, causing issues and like getting everything to mount correctly? So there's two different, obviously spots where we have to install these resistors. And the one over here, which is VR2, it has to go from pin 1 to pin 3. And this is relatively straightforward. This is the original spot. This is actually where it was burnt up previously. So we've got a good hole, in a place close to the heat sink where we can mount it. And the original other hole was over here, but that's kind of too far wide, and I don't want to splay those legs too much, and might not be able to reach from where it's mounted. So I just drilled another hole here. What's nice is this is a big old pad. Like this trace gets really, really big, and there's supposed to be 3 and 4 legs going into here. So we got a nice big area for lots of solder. So I already drilled a hole in here, and this is close enough where if you can imagine it coming from the other side, the legs will go into those 2 holes, and then we can have the back of that resistor go up against the heatsink. Over here is a little bit trickier. Here we need to go from, this was going from pin leg 2 to leg 3 on this side. This one has to go from pin 1 to pin 3. And if you can think about how this was done originally, these are the 2 holes for this, the resistor on this side for this voltage regulator. And so you can even see a little bit of discoloration, from where the board got toasty, because again, these things get hot. So the 2 legs came out here, and one had an insulator that had to jump over this trace and go to this pad, because that's where it needs to go. And the other leg came out of here and kind of folded over actually onto this pad to connect pins 1 and 2. Because if you trace this trace back, it goes to, I think that's pin 1, sort of in reverse. And then if you trace this pad, it goes through this trace up and around over to right here. So that's good. But, obviously this is a very wide spot. And how am I going to get these little legs to connect there? It had the insulator. The original resistor had an insulator because you basically had an exposed wire going across a trace. And if, some of the solder mask got rubbed off, like you can even maybe kind of do it with your fingernail, you'd short it out, and you don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount it right over here. It's actually going to be pretty close, like almost touching the voltage regulator. So this area might get a little bit hot in the heatsink, but it's good because we've had some excess heatsink material over here. What I did was, or what I'm going to do is, there is that diode, I think it's CR5, that goes right here next to the voltage regulator. I've pulled that out of circuit. I'm going to use that same pad right here for one of the legs of this resistor. I've drilled it out a little bit just to make it a little bit wider so I can get both legs, the legs of both of the components through that same via, and we'll solder it all up. But I also need to get into this trace, because that's pin 1, follows this trace here over to here. This is where it was connected originally. That's way too far for me to span that without adding some additional length of wire. So we're going to drill right here. And what that's going to let me do is the legs will line up perfectly right there. And yeah, so what I've done so far is I've marked the spot where I want to drill with a, what is it even called, like a hole punch, basically. Like it'll make a little indentation. You can sort of seat your your drill in there. I've already drilled out this other side, and I've used a fiberglass scratch pen to remove a bunch of the solder mask, the sort of green coloration, that covers up the silver trace. It should have been all green here, but I've scraped off a bunch of that solder mask, so I'll actually be able to solder down into it. Here's my drill here that I have set up and ready to go. This has a little 1/16 drill bit onto it. Honestly, I wish I had something a little bit smaller, because this is a little bit bigger. It's not too big where it's going to be a problem, but if I had something a little bit smaller, that is what I would use, but I don't have that, and I don't want to run to the hardware store. I need to run to the hardware store actually to get some like nut and a bolt to mount onto the to mount the resistor onto the heatsink. But anyway, we're over here, and I got my wires, I think, mostly safely out of the way because I don't want to nick those. And we're drilling right here, and all we need to do is make a little hole through that trace. So here we go. Let's line it up. I'm going to seat the bit in that indentation I made with the hole punch or whatever it's called. So here we go. Wish me luck. We're drilling into a PCB. 3, 2, 1. And there we go. That is it. Let's see what that looks like. We got a little bit of excess material we might want to get off, but that looks like a nice clean hole. So you can see that right here. We used a drill to hopefully fix this monitor. I don't think that's really something I've done before. I might have. I can't remember actually. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll get everything lined up. I actually marked with that hole punch. You can see that little shiny spot right there where I want to drill into the heatsink. I'm going to do the same thing on this side over here, and then I'll go ahead and I'll start reassembling things. We'll put those transistors back in and the diodes, and we'll come back and I'll install the new flyback with you. And at that point, we should be ready, at least with the monitor, to start doing some initial testing. So you don't want to miss that. Okay, we're looking good here. I've got those resistors mounted. You can probably kind of see there's one right there next to the voltage regulator. And this one is a little bit crooked. You might be able to see, or maybe not. It's sort of leaning in there, but that's how I had to do it to get it to fit and so that it doesn't touch the voltage regulator. So VR1 is over here, VR2 is over here. They're both 24 volt voltage regulators. One's positive, one's negative. VR2 is the only one that gets insulated. So you see it has a silicone sill pad behind it and an insulator around the mounting screw. So those are all good. I went and reinstalled or installed new transistors. Remember I had the SCR, I forgot to order, or I couldn't find the replacement I ordered. Same thing with the MPSU 07, which is Q2. There's, I think I just actually forgot to order one. There's two on the deflection board and two of sort of a matching one, and one goes over here, and I guess I forgot to order a third of them. I'm assuming what I did was, when I was going through my checklist to make sure I had everything, I got the wrong quantity, but new transistors for Q1 and Q5, new voltage regulators, put the cap kit in, or the 5 caps that go into this board, the HV board, including the axial one here, 2 new potentiometers that I think adjust the 24 volts, the plus, the positive and the minus, and positive and negative. I replaced the one brown jumper, sort of that 0 ohm resistor with just an extra leg I cut off from one of the caps. And I think we are good. I've dry fitted the replacement reproduction flyback onto it, which took a ton of work to sort of get it in there, sort of to align the legs with the vias, the holes in the PCB. The biggest issue that I had is with this wire here. This is the one that wraps around the ferrite core and then comes around to a via on the PCB. I had to sort of like tuck it under in order to get it to fit, and you know the flyback doesn't want to sit exactly right. Remember, this is like a dummy focus pot. This focus pot doesn't actually do anything because it uses this remote focus block over here, but it's kind of in the way. You know, with the original, it's sort of like hovering a little bit where you can fit that white wire into the spot right there, but I think I got it okay. Again, you know, I made sure it was wrapped around the ferrite core, secured with a zip tie. I might actually, depending on the heater voltage that I'm getting, I might have to wrap another loop around, so I can always redo that, but that's going to require me to basically take the flyback out, but it is what it is. And then there's a focus. I'm assuming this is the focus wire from the flyback that goes to the focus block, and I transplanted the rubber boot from the original flyback, which you can see is cracking a little bit here, but that'll be okay. So let's go ahead and solder this in. I'll actually start with that bit on the focus block just so that this is not dangling on me. I got there's like an eyelet, and I have the wire sort of hooked onto it, so we'll solder that up real quick like that. And make sure we just got a good amount. Okay, that should be fine. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, that looks good, and we will slide the rubber boot onto that just to cover it up and make sure there's no exposed wires there, and then we can flip this over. Oh, the other thing that I did was I you know, resoldered or reflowed the solder for all of the harness wires that come onto the board, and there's this purple wire here, this violet wire that was really kind of frayed. It goes into the focus block. And when I trimmed it and restripped it, there wasn't enough, so I replaced that wire. So here's the original over here, because there's just not enough length once I restripped one end to get it around the mystery red can right here, which there's a whole thing in the FAQ about what people think that mystery can does, but we'll go like this, and here we go. That's a good sort of spot to solder. And I'll start by soldering that wire, which I think is the heater wire, provides the heater voltage. There we go. Good. And then we just have the legs of the flyback. Make sure these are good and soldered. Good connection. Okay. There we go. I saw it kind of snap to flow there. We'll do these two next. I always feel like I should speed this up, but then I'm like, are you missing out on seeing everything in real time? I know, and I skip stuff. I kind of skip stuff that I've done multiple times. I'm worried that, you know, people get bored from seeing the same exact thing over and over and over again. This has a big old ground plane here. Need some extra heat to load this up. So sometimes I skip stuff, sometimes I speed it up. Let me know, tell me down below, do you want to see everything every time, or can I just say, oh, I did that in the asteroids video, or oh, I did that in this other video? I don't know. Because I know not everyone watches every episode, even though you should. All right, I don't like how that's all flowing in one direction. Gotta kind of, yeah, it's all flowing off of the. Oh. Kind of getting to flow or drip back to the other side. This is a. All right, that's okay, I think. I can see it cooling. I just don't want a little bit over here. Don't want to move because the solder is still, there we go. Okay. I think that looks all right, but as always, we don't trust our eyes. We trust our multimeter, which is over here. So continuity, and we'll check all of these. That one, does that go here? Yeah, I guess it does. This one goes here. Okay. There we go. So that's good. So I think that's good for the high voltage board. And essentially this monitor is done. However, you'll notice that I've left that BU 406D, that's Q3, that is not installed. And that's what the FAQ says. So by leaving that out, I've essentially disabled the real high voltage. So we're going to leave that out for testing for now. We'll do the testing, and you know, we'll set the 24 volts, and then we can put Q3 back in. But that's out for now, and that's per the FAQ. So I think the HV board, other than that, is done. I think the deflection board is done, which means we can stick this in the cabinet now and do a monitor test. But in order to do that, we've got to make sure that the cabinet is up and running. So let me go set up for that. We'll test the fuses and the transformer assembly and the AR2, and then finally, we should be able to test this monitor. All right, we're around at the back of the Star Wars cabinet, and through the magic of television, I did a couple of things here, but I'll show you what I've done and how we're getting ready to test the monitor. So I've disconnected obviously the monitor is totally disconnected. I've disconnected the harness edge connector from the PCB. I actually pulled the PCB board set out and you know, pressed down on all the chips, that sort of thing. I pulled the, what do you call it, filter board off, because these are often a source of issues. So pulled it out just for testing. I'm a little bit worried that these boards want to touch each other, but I think we'll be okay. There's like these guides that are holding them in the right position. I'm just worried about the middle sort of touching, but not too worried. Let's see. Down here at the transformer assembly, I did test all of the fuses. Well, actually, first what I did was I put a new power cord in because the original was all chewed up. And there were a couple of spots where like bare wire was exposed. But I pulled all 6 fuses out of the transformer assembly. There's 5 right here, 4 amp, 20 amp, 4 amp, 4 amp, 4 amp. I think all are slow blow. And the 7 amp. I pulled them all, tested them. They were the right values, except the 20 amp is actually only 15, but that should be okay. You know, you never want to go up. We might have issues with that, but it'll be fine. The 7 amp tested fine, and checking continuity from the fuse holders, all of them are good. So first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, and F1 is that sort of you know, push style, whatever you call it. So that's all looking good. I also pulled the AR2 board out, and I replaced the 2N3055 bottle cap transistor, which is something you always want to do if the original is in there. And here is the original right here. And you can see that date code on there, 213055, and then 8313 means this was manufactured in 1983 in the 13th week. So, you know, 30-something, 40-something years old. So I got a new one in there. That's all looking good. And I think we can test the AR2, which I also already did. And the thing I don't like about this AR2 is there's test points, but they don't have the hooks on them. So I can't grab my multimeter onto it. So we're just going to have to do it like this. And I'll stick the multimeter on. Essentially what we're trying to do is, you know, make sure the voltage is okay. You know, something around 5 volts. And there is a pot on the AR2 that'll let us adjust it. So, but I have to just like hold the probes in there. So my head's probably going to get in the way, and I can't even see where it's supposed to be. All right, so there's the sense right there and the ground right there. So we'll go ahead and turn it on. And we're looking for ground right there. The fan is coming on, and sense is right there. And that's 5 point, almost 3. So I'm going to turn that down a skosh, which I have to change it and check it. Can't just, you know, I'd love to just let the, you know, clip-on connectors be there. Still a little high, 515. I mean, that should be fine, but, you know, we'll want to adjust it once it's connected. So ground and sense. Where are we? Okay, 502 is fine. I'll turn it off. Oh, actually, we'll test the AC ripple of the Big Blue, which looks original. So I've switched it to AC volts, and I'm going to check from ground to the 10.3, and that looks good. Like, as long as it's below half a volt, should be okay. And it's showing 0, which I'm a little suspicious of, but we'll turn that off. And I think that fan probably needs to be replaced. I got one to mount above the HV board, which is a recommended mod, but all right, now we can plug in the PCB. I'm curious to see if this thing will play blind. Mark said it did when he got it, but you never know. So let's plug the harness back in. Again, I've got the filter PCB off, but what's nice is it's the same connection. All right, and I will clip on. There's a ground test point where it does have hooks, and 5 right here. So we're expecting 5 volts DC, and I'll make an adjustment to dial it in based on what we get from the board. So here we go, powering up. Ooh, did you hear that? Let's turn this up to like 5.1. That's probably good. I don't know if you heard it, but you heard Luke's voice for a moment there. But then it sounded like it was resetting. Let's try it again. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, and there's like popping now. Something I'm curious about is I don't trust that Big Blue. So let's go back to AC and see what we get over here from ground to the 10.3 spot. And we're getting a bunch of AC voltage leaking through. So let's do this. Let's turn it off. Something I've never done, I actually don't think I've ever done, certainly not in a video, is replace the Big Blue. So let me pull this thing out of the cabinet and pull the transformer assembly out, and I'll show you how to replace the Big Blue capacitor in an Atari cabinet. All right, I've got the transformer assembly out of the Star Wars cabinet and on the bench, and we can go ahead and replace this big blue. Here's the new one I've got here. I think I got this from arcadepartsrepair.com. I don't know, it was years ago, probably maybe when I got the Tempest. I don't know. I like to buy, common parts that I need and keep them on hand so I don't have to, to break up the flow and wait for parts to come in when I'm working on stuff. And and here's the big blue right here. It's actually pretty simple to replace these things. I'm pretty sure I've done this before, actually. Obviously not on camera. And as often as people talk about the big blue being an issue, I think this is maybe the second time I've ever had to replace one. So anyway, it's just a big giant capacitor. Everything's connected down here just with these screw terminals, and it's really easy. So this is the positive side. All the orange wires go to the positive side. All the negative ones go to the purple. Yeah, that's positive, I'm pretty sure. So let's go ahead and disconnect this. All right, we'll put that over here. And yeah, orange has the positive symbol, so we will remember that. Okay. And that's basically all we need to do underneath here. So we'll come back to the top, and there's this like clamp that holds the big blue in place. And it should just pop out now. Come on, it's coming. It's like pulling the sword from a stone. I'll be the king of Atari once I get this out. It's going to make me detach the whole thing. There we go. So there's our old one out. You can see it has a little plus symbol to mark it. Made in USA. Look at that. 2700 microfarad. 15 volts or surge to 20 volts. So there you go. And again, our replacement, 27,000 microfarad, 25 volts. So we should be good there. And again, let me position this in because I want the orange to go to positive. So we'll slide this in like so. There we go, right about there, be fine, I think. And we'll screw it back in. Make sure we've got enough. Actually, I could go down a little bit more. Yeah, maybe up a tiny bit. Okay, right about there is probably fine. And we'll clamp it down. Just enough to hold it in place. We don't want to, crush it or anything like that. And so back again underneath, we have our screw terminals with new screws. All right. And we'll position these 4 purple wires. Get them all lined up. Okay, move this one. See how easy this is? No soldering, no craziness. Couldn't be easier. Hardest part is pulling the thing out of the cabinet and then getting it back in. All right. All right, that looks good. We've got some clearance so we don't hit the bottom. So I'll stick this back in the cabinet and we'll be ready to test it again, and hopefully it's playing blind this time. All right, with the replacement Big Blue installed into the transformer assembly and the transformer assembly reinstalled back into the cabinet, everything plugged back in, we should be ready to go with another test. So keep your fingers crossed. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Holy smokes. Did you hear that? It's not rebooting or not resetting. And it said, I think, what's supposed to be the correct speech on startup, which is Obi-Wan saying the Force will be with you. I'm kind of excited. So let me go around to the front of the cabinet. This is actually on free play, so I should just be able to start it up. Before it was saying something from Luke and then kind of cutting out, and then I was hearing this like resetting sort of sound. So let me see. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this.
Red 5 standing by.
Here we go. That's Luke starting the game, picking medium, I think. I'm not hearing anything yet. Nothing. Oh, there we go! I am playing Star Wars blind. Look at that. Oh, you can't even see it because I'm around to the front of the cabinet. Okay, well, I think technically that counts as progress. I'm coming back around to grab the camera. It's playing blind. You know, Mark said that when he got this cabinet, it was playing blind when he picked it up, but it certainly wasn't when I just tested it a few minutes ago, but now it is. That is awesome. You can hear it still playing. Hopefully you can still hear that. But yeah, so the next step here, you know, I'll probably check the output, X and Y output voltages. You know, this PCB has not been worked on. You know, it has the original AVG chip, which often goes bad, so probably need to get a replacement. And you know, I didn't mention this earlier, but when I was looking at it, it looked like all the caps on the sound PCB have leaked, so that probably needs to be addressed. Obviously, the sound is working, but not something you want to let go long term. And you know, can you still hear it? I'm sorry to say, this little hitch with the Big Blue has kind of thrown a wrench in my timing, my plans for timing here. Yeah, it's still going. It screwed up my timing. It's actually late Saturday night right now, and I really need to go to bed because you know, I got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning for kid stuff, and I missed several hours today because I went to the Minecraft movie with the whole family, which actually wasn't terrible. I really find Jack Black personally to be annoying, but the movie wasn't bad. Let me actually start Star Wars again so we can hear the hear it playing blind. Hopefully it'll go. But yeah, so we're gonna have to wrap up the video here, unfortunately, and we will leave the testing of the monitor, listen to it go, to the next episode. So sorry about that, but we got to keep it moving along. We'll try to get this video. It's probably going to be late because I really won't have time to edit this until Sunday night. So this video is probably coming out on Monday. But Overtime Arcade channel members, they're probably still watching this on Sunday night. If you want to learn more about the Overtime Arcade channel membership program, it's really awesome. Click that join button down below. It'll tell you all about it. You get to join this group of 100 or so awesome people. They're donating $1.99 a month. And in exchange, you know, not only are they supporting their favorite arcade restoration channel on YouTube, they're also getting access to some awesome perks like early access to all new videos, like I mentioned, a monthly members-only live stream, and a private members-only Discord, which is really, really awesome. Believe it or not, we actually had to sort of kick somebody out recently, but anyway, otherwise it's usually really good. And also, we just got a bunch of new channel members, including Justin, including Mike Hip, including EW is awesome. So thank you all. You're all awesome, not just EW. EW is awesome, but you are all awesome. So thanks for your support. And if you want to join these 100 awesome people, click that join button down below. You'll learn all about it. And yeah, hopefully we'll get this Star Wars working soon. We're so close. We're so close. We might be done. We got to put the monitor back in the cabinet, put it together, test it, get it all sorted out. And hopefully in the next episode, we'll be doing that. But I got something kind of interesting planned for next weekend's episode. Anyway, I'm rambling. As always, thanks for watching Overtime Arcade. I'm Charlie, and I'll see you next time.
Overtime!